Okay, so today I'd like to explore a topic, and the topic I want to explore is whether or not you think these small mini amplifiers that are on the market, which are getting so commonplace, do you think they're worth considering? Are these tiny amplifiers, in your opinion, do you think they're worth your money or your time if you're into audio? Today's all about two-channel audio. And yeah, if you've been if you've been following the trend, I want to say, or following what is going on in audio, the two-channel space, you would realize that these little mini amplifiers, little and mini, same thing, but they are very commonplace. If you go onto, a shopping site like, for example, Amazon, you will find a plethora of them. But not only that, there are companies like, just to name one or two, Arilic. That's one I'm familiar with because I own a product from that company. This company called Ayima. I'm not sure how when they start selling their products in North America, but I do own one of their products. Talk about topping. Talk about SMSLs. Is that the name? Is that the correct pronunciation? Talk about FOSI. FOSI is getting very, very popular, and I'm also thinking of getting one of their DACs. So the question is again, do you think these small amplifiers that are getting so prevalent in the marketplace is worth your time? All right, so let's talk about it. All right, so if you haven't been on the channel before, my name is Owen, and thank you for dropping by. On this channel, I talk about two-channel audio. Not only two-channel, but surround sound audio also. It's all about the sound on this channel. All right, so welcome. So let's talk about it. So like I said, I have a product from each of those brands. This is from a company called Ayima, and I purchased this one approximately about 6 months ago, and this little one here is from a company called Arilic, and this one I've had for the last, I would say, maybe 5 years. This is a streaming amplifier, and I think I've made a video about this amplifier before. It's a streaming amplifier, and it's have a lot of tricks up its sleeve. So let's talk about it. So like I said, these amplifiers have really surged in popularity. And if you're a person who was just getting into audio, would these amplifiers be something that you would consider purchasing? Part of the reason why these are getting so popular is mainly because of certain features about them. Number one, they are very compact, very small. Small footprint. They take up so little space. You may be living in an apartment or in a studio flat where these amplifiers are the ideal size. That's what I want to say in terms of footprint, in terms of space. Can't buy a big one because a big amplifier takes up too much space. So small footprint, very compact. Another thing that about them is that when compared to their bigger brothers, these are much less expensive. They are so much more affordable. I think I paid this one was actually purchased. This one was new, but I got it on Facebook Market. I purchased this on Facebook Marketplace. That's what I'm trying to say, for $60. I'm in Canada, 60 Canadian dollars. Right, so they are fairly you know, affordable, you know. Another thing about, you know, these is that they can be quite robust. This one is, I'm not sure I can describe it as being robust, because this is barely weighing less than a pound, to be honest with you. This one is so much more heavier. This is where this is weighing maybe about a pound and a half. It's not weighing a kilo, but this is so much more robust than this one, you know. And you know, apart from that, apart from all of that, they do pack a punch. You know, I can tell you about this one, this little Arylic here. They do pack a punch. And when I say pack a punch, you know, I was surprised. I really surprised the amount of, you know, I wouldn't say the quality of the sound, but how much sound I was able to get from this little one here. So like I said, you know, they generally have great space-saving design, you know, small footprint. Many of them provide, or produces, I should say, fairly decent. I would you know, I would stick my neck out and say high quality sound. You know, they are fairly affordable compared to, you know, their bigger brothers, so to speak. They are quite they're quite versatile. Versatile in the sense that, you know, you can do so much with them based on the features that you know that they have. And not only that, they are very portable, just because of the size. You know, so if portability is something that matters a lot to you, you can consider, I would say you should consider something like one of these. So if you're thinking of purchasing one of these amplifiers, what are some of the things you should look for? I mean, these are basically my opinion, really. I think you should look for one of them which would, you know, give you at least 20 to 50 watts of power. I think 20 to 50 watts is a good starting point. Let me just look around here. This one, I'm trying to remember how much it said. What's the wattage on this? Don't remember. But this one, this one is touted to, you know, this one is touting a rating of 150 watts per channel. That's the AIMA. Yeah. So, but anyway, 20 to 50 watts per channel is a good place to start, in my opinion. Another thing you should consider if you're thinking of getting one of these mini amplifiers is connectivity. What can you connect to them? So let's talk about connectivity for a minute. And I'm going to talk about the AIMA here. Now, if you're able to see this properly, and you're able to see all the connectors on the back here, you'll notice that this has real good binding post. Binding post, in my opinion, is essential for any amplifier, because, you know, you can use banana plugs instead of wrapping raw wire around the binding post. You know, you can connect banana plugs to your speaker wires and just plug them right in. It has a nice set of RCA connectors here also. So this is a subwoofer output, and here you have left and right in, and here This is coaxial digital input, and this is a Bluetooth connector here, and of course we have two more digital inputs over here. We have optical digital in, or Toslink, depending on what you call it, and this one is a USB input. So this has a USB DAC built in. So when compared to the Aurelic, this even though I think the Aurelic is still a little bit more versatile than the AIMA, I really prefer the build quality and the connectors that this have. This comes with left and right in, of course, and this also has a subwoofer out. It has optical digital in, or Toslink, and of course a USB input. Yes, it does have a USB input. Two USB inputs for that matter. So it have a USB DAC built in, and it also has an Ethernet connection. Of course, it has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antennas. So the difference let's talk about the difference. The differences that I like. What I like about this is that this is the streaming amplifier. This is a streaming amplifier. This you can stream straight from the web. Whichever music service you're subscribed to, you can stream to this and output it to your speakers. So this is an excellent streaming hub. It comes with an app. I think it's called the 4Stream app. Yeah, the 4Stream app. And people, a lot of people said it's a knockoff of the Blue Sound app. And if you ever use the Blue Sound product, I heard that they have one of the best app. So this supports Spotify, Tidal, Qbuzz, AirPlay. What else? Just to name a few. It has Wi-Fi. It has Bluetooth. You can do wireless, or you can do Ethernet. It has a subwoofer out. You can connect a CD player to this because it has optical input, and of course coaxial. No coaxial. Sorry. Left and right. So if you have a turntable, you can connect a phono output to this. So I like this. This has no physical controls on the front. No physical controls on the front. So everything that you do, you either have to do it through the remote or through the app. But what I like about this most is the streaming aspect of it. The fact that I can just fire up Spotify on my phone and connect straight to this, and I'm good to go. The main thing I don't like about this is the speaker connector. I should have brought it, but it does not have, as compared to the AIMA, which has binding posts. This has a little thing that you would connect your speaker wires to, and you just push it into this little slot here. You push it into this little. I hope you're able to see this. And it is very limiting because it does not allow you to. It's not a good candidate to connect thicker wires. So the speaker wires that I use with this are very, like, people would call them shoestring kind of speaker wires. Yeah. So those are the features I like about this. When you're operating it with the remote, each input that you would select would, there's a LED indicator on the front here when it's powered on, and for every input, it gives you a corresponding color for that input. So the color of the LED changes depending on the input that you selected on this. So this is it, the Arylic. I think it's 50 watts per channel. 50 watts per channel, and when this is connected to a subwoofer, it produces very good, very decent sound. All right, so let's talk about the AIMA again. Now the AIMA is a little bit different. It has some controls on the front here. Of course, it has power button on the front, and it has a volume knob on the back. In terms of connectors, it has three digital inputs, USB, Toslink, and coaxial digital input. It has RCA left and right, and it has a subwoofer out. And that is something that I really like about both of these. They both have subwoofer outputs, because I just love having a subwoofer in my system, so yeah, so in terms of connectivity, both of them are fairly decent. The major difference with this one from the AIMA compared to the Arylic is the fact that the AIMA does not do any streaming. There's no streaming. In terms of streaming, it cannot do any streaming at all. The most you can do is connect via Bluetooth, right? So, like I said, in terms of connectivity, these little amps, even though they are small, the manufacturers try to cram as much as they can in terms of connectors and inputs on many of them. And these do not have the best sounding DACs, because obviously these are those, especially based on the fact that these little things are just, especially the Arylic here, while it produces a very good room filling audio, just the weight of it, something that is weighing maybe less than a pound, it is obvious that this is just basically a chip, just a chip inside. There's hardly much components inside of this. Just it's light as a feather. This, on the other hand, has much more weight to it. So the build quality is so much more better. Let's talk about controls. I like something that gives me the option of raising or lower the bass. I can do a little bit of bass management. The good thing is that both of them do allow to adjust the bass levels, bass and treble. They do. You have to do it through using the remote though. Just the remote, or in this case, I can also, increase the bass through the app. In terms of volume, the Arylic will only allow me to adjust the volume with the remote. The AIMA, it has a volume knob on the front of it, so. That's a major difference. And both of them, like I said, do come with a remote, which gives you fairly good control over both of these units. In terms of build quality, this one is so much more robust, so much more heavier, when compared to this, you know, this is very, very sturdy. This feels like, you know, it's worth my money in terms of the, you know, the build quality. In terms of power supply, the kind of power supply that these use, so both of these they come with a, you know, power brick. You know, you know, they both have little slots here, you know, where the power bricks are connected to. Because, you know, they are so small that, you know, it would not, to keep the size down, you know, adding a power supply internally, I think would kind of defeat the purpose of keeping the size down. So they do have external power bricks that are used to power them. Regular power bricks, nothing USB, nothing USB. Yeah, so, you know, I love them. I really love them. They both have their pros and cons. You know, the biggest pros for me when it comes to the AIMA is basically how beautiful the back, how beautiful and clean the back of it is. I just love the fact that the back is laid out so beautiful. On the other hand, the acrylic, while it's not laid out as beautiful as the AIMA, but what it can do, in my opinion, you know, kind of outweigh those negatives. It can outweigh those negatives. So, you know, I use them for what they are. And the fact that this is more of a streaming amplifier, you know, I tend to use this one more because this one does not have any streaming, you know, abilities built in. But I love the fact that I can connect better speakers to the AIMA, because I shouldn't say better speakers, better cables to the AIMA. And, you know, so that's one advantage about it. Yeah, so they both have subwoofer outputs. Neither of them have a headphone jack, and both of them have remotes. Yeah, so I just thought I would, you know, pick your brain, so to speak, about these little amplifiers and just to get your thoughts on them and what do you think. Are these something that you would probably consider purchasing? I personally have better amplifiers in my system, but, you know, there are times when I would love to implement one of these amplifiers in a different kind of setup. For example, at one point, I had this powering a TV in my bedroom. I think I mentioned that in another video, to produce a better quality sound from my TV using two small speakers. I took the optical out of the TV into this, and it was night and day compared to the TV speakers. I also used it to power, at one point I was using it to power my desktop computer. So I was able to use better quality speakers with my computer setup. Also taking the optical from my motherboard into the back of this, and so that's lovely. For this one, basically Bluetooth. I love the fact that, you know, it allows me to connect better quality speaker cables to it because of the fact that it has good binding post. I love that. Yeah, so what are your thoughts when it comes to these little amplifiers? I mean, they have become really commonplace. I mean, I would say brand galore. If you should get on, if you should do a search, I'm sure you'd come up with a lot of brands. I've seen reviewers on YouTube, other reviewers who review audio, review mini amplifiers from other brands, and have been impressed with many of them. but I think it's something that, you have to really, what's the right word? Decide to give a try. That's what I'm trying to say. Obviously, they are not going to sound as good as a nice class AB amplifier or a nice streaming amplifier, class D, with good class D implementation. But, for what they're worth, if you live in a small space and you want to get into, two-channel audio, I think these small amplifiers that are getting so popular, are something to consider, to be honest with you. Like I said, I want to try. For some reason, I'm kind of attracted to the brand Fosi. The reviews on their products are quite good, and I want to try one of their DACs. I don't think I would go with an amplifier because I already have two amplifiers here, but I love to try one of their DACs. So yeah, I just thought I'd run that by you today, guys. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below if you are thinking of picking up one of these small amplifiers that are commonplace on the market. Let me know if you already have one, and with, what brand is it and your impression of it. Yeah, just touch base with me in the comments and let me know. All right, so until the next video, thank you so much for listening. You take care of yourself and you have a great day now. All right, bye-bye.